happy Monday, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on the Transportation and Logistics Clubhouse, powered by Atlanta Dispatch and Humblebee Enterprises. I'm very excited to be here today with a special guest. We have our brother Jacob from Candor Expedite. And before we begin, I just wanted to start by saying this. It's the temperature's changing, it's getting cold outside, and the homelessness is really growing in the country at an alarming rate. And for months now, I've been looking for a solution because I've noticed that even where I work out on a regular basis, it's just a lot of displaced persons in their vehicles. And you can give money, and that's cool, but at the same time, I wanted to do more than what my personal bank account has enabled me to do. And thankfully, I'm just very, very grateful. I had the opportunity to speak with Atlanta Councilman Jason Winston. That brother, he pointed me to PAD initiative, and PAD stands for Policing Alternatives and Diversion Initiative. And it's a nonprofit that provides housing for up to 6 months for the displaced. So if you're in Atlanta and you've noticed, maybe somebody needs some assistance like that, you can dial 311 extension 1, and that'll take you to PAD. And the only thing that the person or persons would need to do is simply, consent to receiving the aid, and then pad initiative was moved from there. So if you live in another area, I would just encourage you to find whatever resources that can help those individuals in your area. But I was very, very grateful to speak with brother Jason Winston this past weekend, and I've been looking for this, man. So I feel really good to finally have it. um, Oh, in addition, I'm publishing a book on the fundamentals of dispatching, so be on the lookout for that. I believe my editing is gonna be completed very soon, so we're gonna be moving forward with that. All right, we got Jacob on stage, who is the VP of Business Excellence and Strategy for Candor Expedite. Hey, Jacob, how you doing tonight, brother?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me again tonight, Jory. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no doubt, man. No doubt. I mean, I'm just very excited to have you here. And, let me just start by asking this. When you went to college, like when you went to school, did you automatically know, were you preparing to enter supply chain, or was that something that you kind of just fell into?
I think it was always in the cards for me. I'm second generation, so my dad he's owned and operated truck lines in his past, um, and again, fell in love with the business and learning about it, spending a lot of time in driver rooms inside of his office, and meeting and seeing some of the guys and seeing what they were up to and how they did what they did. I got introduced to the industry early on in my life, and from there, I mean, it provided a I was very fortunate as a kid to do a lot of different things that others weren't able to, and I think that was a lot of the hard work that my dad put in, and it was fun and exciting to me. And we would always say it was funny because we go on family road trips or we go somewhere and we always complain, oh my God, that truck, oh my God. My dad would, it still resonates to me to this day. It's like that truck puts food on your table, that truck puts clothes on your back, that truck puts gas in our cars and so on and so forth. And uh, that's when, my curiosity kind of sparked, and I kind of knew that that was going to be my path uh, throughout my college years.
Nice, nice. So are you saying that as a kid that you used to go on those road trips in the 18 wheeler with your father?
Oh no, no, no! Just sitting in the car. We'd always complain about the trucks.
Oh, okay. I got
They were slower. They would always get in the
yeah.
way. And you learn a lot about this stuff later on down the road. But again, it's just he would always tell us like that truck puts food in your mouth, it puts clothes on your back, puts gas in our cars. So take it easy on those guys. They deserve a lot more respect than they're showing them. So
Yes, sir. Okay. No, I definitely hear where you're coming from. I was raised by a trucker too. I mean,
Hmm.
I think that we lived in the country, so we understood that they might go a little bit slower, but we were very excited when we saw trucks as a kid. You know, we were the ones kind of sticking our head out the window, doing the hey, blow, you know, do the air horn type of
Oh
situation.
yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah, man, we were very excited about trucking, and we did used to get those opportunities to go over the road. You know, being able to experience what the sleeper looks like, and you know all these other different areas along the East Coast. We didn't go too far into the West, but yeah,
sure.
those are definitely some foundational memories from me in my childhood. So I can understand how you knew you were going to get into supply chain just by way of you know your upbringing, and
Hmm.
now you know you're with Candor Expedite. And what does expedite mean? And are there any differences between an expedite brokerage and a traditional brokerage?
Yeah. So again, a lot of what we do, again, just in time. You know, I guess the best way to describe it is uh, when a shipper doesn't want to use an LTL carrier because again, you know, they want an exclusive use vehicle. They don't want that the back of that truck opened up. Um, they don't want that product moved by any stretch of the imagination. Um, they want it there tomorrow, you know, type mentality. And again, um, you know, some of the folks that operate in our business aren't governed by the DOT laws, so they're able to move a little bit quicker, a little bit faster. So for us, again, expedite, you know, a lot of different meanings and a lot of different things. But again, it's really, you know, when that shipper needs product from A to B and it needs it now, needs it tomorrow, it doesn't need to stop, et cetera, et cetera. That's when we find that we're called to duty. You know, the other things that we see is again is I have a pallet and I have product and I don't want to ship it via LTL. So again, I need an exclusive use vehicle. I don't want to pay for the truckload, um, and I want it, and I need the product tomorrow. So that's where we see a lot of our customers come to us and how they view us as an expediter.
Okay, yeah, all right, nice, nice. I know you've been in this industry for quite some time. That I saw on your LinkedIn profile.
Hmm.
For Candor Expedite specifically, though, were you with them since the very beginning? I believe they got started in 2000. You guys got started in 2017, correct?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So the day, well, it's not the day that my wife and I were married, but it's our anniversary is May 6th. And and in 2017, Nicole Glenn, who's our owner and founder, she started Candor Expedite in May 6th, 2017. I joined the organization in October of 2017, so about 5 months after the company started.
Okay, cool, cool. Well, that's pretty interesting. I mean, that is
Mhm.
definitely a connection. I was like, where is he going with this one?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I can't. I'll never forget the day Candor was started, and I definitely won't be able to forget the day I got married. So.
Yeah, no doubt, man. No doubt. Okay. So all right, for the people who don't know, you know, what it's like to work at a brand new brokerage, can you describe like what a normal day would have been back in 2017 versus what a normal day looks like Q4 of 2022?
Oh gosh, we talk about this often, and Nicole and I in some of our meetings, and we were just meeting last week and or 2 weeks ago and discussing this as well. As you know, it was show up to work, it was gobble up as much freight as you can. Um, you know, the days were very stressful. It was Nicole and myself initially. So again, it was, you know, she'd call or she'd say, "Hey, I'm going to drive home. You going to stick around here? Can you watch everything?" Yeah, absolutely. She'd call, "Hey, I'm home." I drive home. You know, we'd spend the nights, with phones on, emails
Wow.
up, a lot of sleepless nights, as we were trying to establish ourselves. And again, you know, her as the owner, I mean, probably more sleepless nights than myself. But again, we shared a lot of those responsibilities and duties, and like I said, is just the two of us working through that in the beginning. And it's so funny because a good day for us was, 10 shipments. And now, we're over that 1,000 shipment a mark, a month, or we're right there, most months, and we're continuing to grow. And, you know, uh, from day one, it was like, oh, let's get 10 shipments. And now if like, we're not walking in with, 10 to 20 shipments on the ready and booked, then we're not doing something right. So the big difference from day one to today.
Right, man, that is awesome. I love to hear that because a lot of people don't understand how difficult starting something from scratch can be, and it's all your will. It's all will at that point. Uh, if you don't put out, I mean, if you don't really do what you need to do continuously, consistently, and with vigor, it probably is not going to get off the ground. It just takes a lot of work. So I commend the both of you. Um, but you mentioned something, right? At first you guys were just trying to get the business. It was just trying to win the business to try to establish yourself. And it kind of makes me think about the people who listen to this podcast.
Hmm.
Well, there are a good amount of people who are established. Maybe they even work for a large brokerage. But since the pandemic came, there are a lot of people who are budding entrepreneurs, and they
Hmm.
got their MC authority. They're new though. What's the lesser of the two evils for a new brokerage? Like quoting too high and potentially missing the business, or winning the business after quoting low and potentially not being able to get the freight move. Which one is the lesser of the two evils?
Well, for us, I think once again we experience this a lot too, and we talk about it a lot as well. But for us, it was always like staying. For us, we wanted to stay true to ourselves. We wanted to stay true to what we were trying to accomplish, what we were doing. We were offering what we consider premium service. We were giving um, our customers uh, a better communication. Uh, uh, we relied on service. We sold that. And we said that we were going to be the best in class service that any of our customers ever had, and we just needed the opportunity to do so. And Nicole is the salesperson, so to speak. She would just drive that home with customers, and her tenacity would get us opportunities through the door. And then again, it was always, what are we going to do with it? And again, there's a lot of different things. It was a different time in 2017 than it is today. I heard you guys talking about rates a little while ago, and you know, just depending on where and when and how the product needed to be moved. Again, we would always go back to our customers with an actual truck in hand, and whatever that might cost. And we were very open and honest with the customer, and saying, hey, this is what the truck costs. We didn't give them our markup or anything along those lines, but this is what this truck is going to cost. And we understand if you don't want to utilize us today, but we can rest assured that if you do utilize us, that your product will get from A to B. You'll get the best in class communication. You'll get the best in class service, and we stood behind that. And we learned hard ways sometimes, being priced out of the game, and that's just that happens in the business. But again, is we were very proud of being able to provide what I consider as best in class service to our customers by paying a little bit higher, out the gate. It worked, you know.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So you're basically saying that. Well, I'm not going to sum it up in that way, but it just depends on the operation. But you'd rather be able to have enough money in it to pay the carrier versus just win the business and not know what to do with it.
Yeah, and again, it changes, So now today, you're seeing a little bit of a different marketplace where again, there's freight's less. There's less and less freight that's out there, and it's costing less and less. And again, you're going to have to take some risks. But, for some of the stuff that we do, depending on what we're doing, we're very open and honest with our customers. And we think our customers are the same to us is that, hey, you need this. How important is this? Can we do something different? Here's what it would be like, drop dead. It's got to be there at 8 a.m. It can't fail. There's no stopping, this, that, and the other. Or, do you have a bigger window where we might be able to get you a better rate, um, still provide you the same type of service, et cetera, et cetera. So, and then those would be the opportunities that would take a little bit more chances on and move forward from there.
Okay. Well, that definitely makes sense. And, it kind of segues into this question. You mentioned a bit of a timeline, maybe even an expedited timeline, which is kind of how that term comes in here.
Mm-hmm.
But what are some of the considerations when you're setting the price for maybe an RFP? Not necessarily peak season, but this is a question more so for those brand new brokers that are going to be listening to say, okay, well, this company scaled from two people back in 2017 to now moving 1,000 loads a month. What type of efficiencies did they learn, and what are they considering when they're submitting these responses to RFPs? So yeah, what are those considerations that you've learned in your career? I know you've done a lot of stuff too, so it doesn't just have to be what you're doing with Candor where you answer from.
Yeah, I think it varies across, if you're asset based or you're asset light, right? So again, if you're asset based, you really definitely need to know your costs and what it's going to cost for you to operate your truck at any given point. So when you're submitting an RFP for something along those lines, is just being able to make sure that you're able to continue to service the business and have the ability to grow. I think that's where a lot of folks, lose that mindset is like, I just want the business today, but they don't understand what the impact on their bottom line is gonna be at the end of the day. So that's one thing from an asset side. From an asset light side, I mean, for us, it's a few different things, right? So we look at what are the shipping hours. I still remember to this day one of the first opportunities that we ever got was moving tires cross country, and we're an expediter, right? So the opportunity came across. It was a truckload. These were truckload opportunities that would come across. They'd load up in upstate New York, and they'd go across country, and there were loads of tires. And again, you know, we're up servicing it at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning because that's when it's picking up. So understanding when you're shipping and when your delivery windows are is very important because it will fluctuate the price. Um, I think understanding what are the touch points too. For us being an expediter, if a customer wants a touch point every hour on the hour, we can give that. But again, it's not necessarily what we do for every shipment, and we'll cater and tailor that. But again, there's a cost associated with it because, again, folks are touching it, and now as we start to grow, we're starting to look into more and more automation for that. So we'll be able to adjust and hopefully lower costs, to be able to with that automation and be able to get more in line with where the customer wants to be. But I think that those are some of the bigger ones is really understanding what is the customer ultimately what's their pain point. When it comes to the RFP, what are some of the struggles that they have with certain things in certain lanes and what can you get away with and what can't you get away with?
Right. So it sounds like uh, one of the biggest parts of responding to the RFP is actually talking to the customer and getting them to tell you what they need, getting them to speak of those pain points.
Yeah, and again, it's easier said than done, right? Some customers are very open and honest, and others are, just aren't programmed that way. And again, is do you want to participate at that point? And again, do you want to set yourself up for failure? We try to do our very best in learning and understanding our customer inside and out, and knowing their business just as well as they do, so that we can relay the information. We're a middle person, at the end of the day. And if we don't understand and know the ins and the outs of the customer and their business and what they're trying to accomplish, and what's acceptable and what's not. If you don't ask those questions on the front end, they're going to come up later on down the pike, and again, you're answering questions that you wish you would have known when you did the RFP. Because again, it's careful for what you wish for, so to speak. But again, if I would have asked that simple question on the front end, maybe my cost is a little bit different. Maybe that's a premium type service that they want, that I wouldn't offer just to anybody.
I definitely hear you there. I definitely hear you there. Okay. Well, cool, cool, cool. Traditionally, you've been even before being with Candor, you work for many brokerages. Is there a traditional start time when you think about the holiday peak season? Like, is there a month or just a general time frame where you start to get ready to gear up for a peak season?
Yeah, it's always been September, October, right? Or even you start to hear about August, and it's funny how, and I use Christmas as the gauge, and my wife is she's one that definitely supports retail business very well, as evidenced by the amount of Target bags that show up in my house and Amazon. But again, it's so odd is like as Christmas or peak season or the end of the year continues to come earlier, or as you see more and more things out earlier and earlier. It was funny the other day we were in Target and they're starting to take down the Halloween stuff, and we're a week away, and they're starting to put up the Christmas stuff. So as as these things happen and as these events occur earlier and earlier, it just seems like peak season is just spread out for more um, and earlier each and every year. So, you might be seeing stuff that you're moving in July, August that's going out on shelves and racks now, whereas typically you would never see that till September, October. So, again, over the last 20 years of my career, it's September, October was the gauge, right? That was the time. That was, no vacations. You finish out the year. Let's finish this year on a strong note. And now it's just, again, is I think it's spread out more. I don't think you see peak season as it's been in its traditional sense in the past. I think this year again too. I think you hear the word inflation, and you start to think people are spending less money on things and more on experience. So a lot of different things that are happening out there that is not giving way to traditional peak season, so to speak.
Gotcha. And how did you traditionally prepare for a peak season? And now, because you're saying 20 years worth of industry experience, and how is it different now preparing for a peak season, working as an expediter, expediting brokerage?
Yeah, that's a good question. Again, is was always leveraging, and I sat in operations a lot. So again, leveraging relationships, and making sure that the capacity was available. And if the capacity wasn't available, that I was trying to build new relationships with carriers. I think that was one of my strategies that I used when I sat in the dispatch seat, and making sure that I knew who was going to be around and who wasn't, who was going to be looking for certain lanes in certain areas, who wasn't, and then just trying to build off of that. And again, that was one of the things that I did in my past. And now as an expediter, again, it's for us is you know really understanding where our relationships are at. I think for with carriers and making sure not only do they have the capacity, but are they able to service it? So many different things happen, and so many people are in and out of the industry. And while somebody might say on the FMCSA site that they have 50 trucks, they may only be operating 10. Or they may be operating 100. Excuse me, and you just don't know. So making sure you really understand. who your strategic partners are, what they're doing, what they're capable of, what they can and can't do. I know one year we went in and we had a company that was very proficient in straight trucks, and we didn't even know, but then they made a shift and they started uh, renting and leasing cargo vans, and the drivers were utilizing that equipment, and then there was nobody operating in their straight trucks, and we were like, "Hey, what happened? And why aren't we getting your capacity anymore?" And they're like, "Well, you don't have any cargo van moves for us." When did that happen? When did you shift? So, long story short is I think again leveraging and understanding your relationships with your strategic partners is crucial um, in in any facet of transportation. But again, for us, it's really understanding what carriers are operating, what types of equipment, and where they're at, and what they're trying to accomplish, with their equipment.
Yeah, I think that sounds great, and I like how you also gave that that example of one of the pitfalls of just not being aware that one of your major players, one of your major carriers, were transitioning to a different equipment type. Did you have any other pitfalls that you've experienced in past peak seasons that maybe one of these newer brokerages listening might can learn from and prayerfully avoid?
Oh yeah, I think the biggest one is team drivers, right? We we were doing a lot of shipments on the border. Uh, at during peak season, I always forget because COVID, right? So 2018, 2019, um, and again is carriers would go down, they'd have great money going down, and then they'd get this great opportunity coming out of El Paso with a straight truck, and again we're shipping product all over across country, and again requiring team service, like no stopping. We can't have the stop for breaks and food and fuel and get yourself right. But again, we can't afford a 10-hour break, or an 8-hour break, whatever it might be. And again, we went through a lot of struggles of carriers stopping in the middle of the night, keeping our eyes on them, wondering what's going on, drivers not answering the phone. So again, we changed up our strategy a little bit, and how we combat that, how we viewed those carriers, who we were talking to. I mean, there still is a picture to this day of two drivers in a truck taking a selfie with each other. I mean, stuff like that we overlook because again we're a very open and honest company, and you try to trust everybody that you work with, and again some of that stuff happened, and again while it didn't kill us, it definitely helped us become a little bit stronger because we created a lot more process, a lot more procedure in making sure that we were getting the customer exactly what they asked for.
Okay, okay. So uh, that makes sense, especially as an expedite company. You guys have very, very, very strict timelines. That's the whole point of just in time. For the most part, you guys might get the shipment that if it doesn't get there at this amount of time, the whole plant is going to shut down, and that's going to cost that customer, this amount of money per minute. That type of thing, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we run into that all the time.
Oh, okay. So when it comes to having those type of pressures that you're dealing with your customers who are already a bit stressed out, how do you leverage? I mean, I'm not trying to say this in a crazy way, but does that affect the price that you charge? And if so, how does? I mean, is there a type of calculation that you put in there to say the stress factor is this high, so this is how much we're going to multiply it by?
I don't think that there's an actual calculation, but again, I think when you're talking about risk and how much risk is involved in not getting a shipment at a specific place at a specific time in a specific location. Um, there there's quality, right? So again, I always refer. There's always this chart, right? You want it quick and you want it cheap. It doesn't really exist. And again, you're going to sacrifice one or the other. But again, there's this cost and in service, and carriers are, a lot of smart carriers, value their business on service. And we've had, again, you talk to a carrier and they're like $7 a mile. $7 a mile. How is that possible? And it's like, you will get the best possible service. Don't worry about it. I will update you. I will do this. I will show you my drivers. They'll video themselves driving down the road, whatever you want, making sure that you're comfortable with the risk that's associated with this load. We'll make sure it happens. And again, these things would happen. And again, you take your chances with it and you make sure that your client's aware. And again, sometimes we walk away from deals too. So we were very open and honest and saying, hey, I can get you the best of the best right here. These are our best carriers, but there's a cost associated with it. Customer would say yes, some cases. Other cases, they would say, no, I'm going to take my chances. I would say a lot more times than not, they come back to us and say, man, I really wish I would have used you guys. I really got raked over the coals on this last shipment. It was 14 hours late. There was one driver that showed up. He had said that he was on his break. He couldn't drive. He blamed it on his dispatcher. Dispatcher wouldn't answer the phone. We could never get updates. Those types of things. And so, again, I don't think that there's an actual calculation to it. Again, for what we've done and what we did in the past, when those risk-heavy shipments are there, we're utilizing the best and the best. We're very open and honest in what we can and cannot do, and we're very open and upfront with our customers and saying, hey, listen, this is what the cost is going to be based off of that.
All right, I hear you. I hear you. That kind of reminded me of this audio that's going viral on Instagram, and it's basically saying, "Well, I want it fast, I want it cheap, and I want it good." And the person's like,
Yes,
"Well, you can only get two of those."
yes, yeah. Pick which one you want, right?
Right, right. So no, I love it, and I completely understand it. I mean, to be honest, man, this is what I really want to know about your company is, I understand that it's a need. I do understand it's a need, but do you feel like are you happy to service the expedite, like the just in time shipments, or do you also welcome the pre-planned things that that is going to happen months in advance?
Yeah, so we've become diverse in that aspect. So we do a lot of different things. We've just launched a couple of months ago our air freight component, so we're able to offer that to our customers. So it's the ability for us to take a product from New York and take it to California next day. Um, those types of things. So we do have that service available. We do have the ability to partner with LTL companies in case our customers do that. So again, our customers vary. So all of them have different needs and wants. Um, it's funny because again, we did a lot of expediting and a lot of straight truck and cargo vans for a lot of our customers initially, and then they started asking, "Well, hey, we love you so much. Can you guys do truckload?" I'm like, "Yeah, we can do truckload." And then they were like, "Can you do flatbed?" "Yeah, we can do flatbed. How about power only?" And it just kind of snowballs from there. And again, our company is always looking for that customer that is really focused in on that expedited side of the business first and foremost. But then, after that, we have a menu of services that we can offer solutions on. So if somebody came to us and said, hey, I expedite 100 shipments a month. I want you guys to be the sole provider of those 100 shipments. Can you do it? Yeah, absolutely. And they say, well, how about these 2 air freight shipments that I do a month? Can you do that? Like, yeah, we can handle that as well. Now, which in the past we weren't able to. And then they'd say, hey, I got 3 truckloads that I do in a month. Can you do that? Yes, we can handle that as well. So again, is just we have the ability to do that. And it's funny because as we've grown, we've hired folks specifically to fit those niches and to lead those niches. And be subject matter experts for us in that space.
Right. Well, I can't lie to you, man. I absolutely love it, and I say it that way because it reminds me of my mentality when I transitioned from corporate America to opening my dispatch company, and it was a matter of focusing on dispatching box trucks, so
Mm-hmm.
the type of equipment that you would need and how that kind of uh, allowed me to really learn the industry from a ground floor level because being able to be privy to just in time shipments that go on box trucks, you really have to have your ear to the ground. You got to have you got to be on the pulse. You got to just know a lot of people who want to work with you so that you can get those opportunities. And,
Yeah.
now that you guys have specialized and created a lane for yourselves to be able to shine in such a difficult segment, you can kind of handle everything now. Everything else it seems like it would just be a little bit, be like cake on top, like cherry on top of the cake. After
Mm-hmm.
you've already mastered being able to thrive in the just in time space. So, man, I love it. I truly do. And that makes me segue into just you as a supply chain professional. You've been in the industry. I was about to say you've been in the league. You've been in the league now for 20 years. And it's a different market. Do you believe it's easier to be a carrier or a broker in today's market?
That's a really good question. It's a really tough question too. I think you know being second generation and being a carrier for years and understanding that side of things, I always think that that's a lot harder of a business to manage, maintain, to grow um, than being a broker. I think again, there's less risk to be a broker. I think right now though it's interesting. We're in a different time too, where brokers rode a wave for a very long time. Being able to go out and charge what they want and do what they want um, uh, anywhere, and to any customer. And now it's changing. You're seeing a little bit of a change now. People are talking about, we're talking about peak season a little bit here tonight, and they're talking about how it's not going to be the same. It's not going to be as busy, as hectic, as crazy as it's been in years past. So again, I still believe I think it's easier to be a broker. Um, I think there's a lot more issues with being a carrier that you can run into. But at the end of the day, right now, carriers, um, they're seeing a lot of different things going on in the marketplace, and um, as far as costs are concerned and price, um, and they're seeing less and less freight. So it's going to be difficult for them to weather the storm as well. So again, I'll always say it's tougher to be a carrier. I don't care if the market's great for being a carrier. It's just there's so much to being a owner operator, being a driver, being a carrier that I don't think a lot of folks even understand um, out there that are doing you know jobs that we do each and every day. So again, I think it's tough.
Right, right, right. And I hear you. It is challenging during this market to weather the storm for carriers. And traditionally, peak season was when carriers were able to get ahead. They were really, really, really excited and gung ho about this specific time of year because they were able to really capitalize on the dedicated nature of freight opportunities. And it was just like very, very high intensity, very quick transactions where they got a lot of money. They just made a lot of revenue. And, how can, since you guys are you specialize in the just in time, and your main equipment type is going to be between the box truck and the cargo van. I don't know if you guys work with sedans any, but how can a box truck fleet or a cargo van fleet position themselves to participate in peak season opportunities? Like, what do they need to do to get out here to make themselves available so that they can do whatever peak season there's going to be in 2022?
Yeah, I think it started a little sooner than where we're at today, or it has to start a little sooner than it has today. But I think from our perspective, it's really understanding a carrier's capabilities, right? And having them pick a lane. So many carriers that we utilize today, um, for the longest time, and they'll chase the dollars and the cents, right? And they don't necessarily become really good at anything per se. And the same thing would hold true for a brokerage too. We have customers that come to us and say, "Well, what are you guys really good at?" And sometimes that's difficult for us to answer. But again, I think it's really picking that lane and positioning yourself as like, if I want to be the best carrier in the Detroit market that goes to Cleveland, then I'm going to tout that and I'm going to live and die by that on a regular basis. And while opportunities may not be there every day for that type of lane or that type of work, again, is positioning myself close enough to those marketplaces where I'm still living true to what I'm really good at. And I think that so many different times is a carrier will go outside of that box uh, because there's a little bit of greener grass on the other side, and and they don't necessarily truly understand the opportunity that's out there, and they fail, and then they lose the trust of the broker, or the broker loses the trust of their customer. And in the end is no one has a relationship at that point. So again, is I think that's something that uh, really has to reign true, because we've had so many different instances too where customers come to us and said, "Hey, I got a shipment that goes to Mexico. You want it, or can you do it?" No, thank you. Because we don't service that area. But if you wanted to go to Laredo and figure it out from there, we can make that happen. Or if you want to go to El Paso, and we can maybe connect you with another partner that can take it across the border for you. So again, is I think that those are some of the things too, where you offer different solutions, even past your capabilities. Customers, brokers alike will appreciate that so much more than just saying, "Yeah, I'll take care of it." Don't worry. Um, so
Okay, okay. So that might even answer the question of how do you stand out? Is just making sure that you specialize, that you find a specific sector, you learn it really, really well, and not only are you a specialist in this area, but start to string together solutions so that even when other things come up, you began to offer those as well. Are there any like soft skills within that you look for that you want a carrier to provide or come to the table with that makes you feel even a little bit better, just a little bit warmer
yeah,
about giving them the opportunity versus another company?
yeah. I think the biggest ones for us is, do they align with our values, right? So we're very open and honest with our customers. So we want to make sure we have the same type of carriers utilizing uh, that are partnering with us. So again, is that open and honesty. If you're picking up a load in Dallas and you're uh, 30 miles away, it doesn't mean you're 30 minutes away. Say, "Hey, I'm 30 miles away, but I'm looking at an hour and a half due to traffic." That open and honest communication is critical for our business, and we appreciate that so much more. And again, sometimes we might not be able to give you the order and we give you the load based off of what you've provided. But again, that open and honest communication, like, it'll come back. And we've seen it time and time again where carrier A is open, honest. They've never they've never given us a reason not to believe them. And then there's carrier B. They're the cheaper option. We can make a lot more money, but we've had 5 instances this year. So who do we want to go with? So we tend to go with carrier A a lot of times. And again, that does that hurt our bottom line? Yeah, a little bit, but I think we're in it for the long haul, so it'll be okay. I think the second biggest thing is communication, right? So especially in our space, like we have certain customers, we don't want to see the truck stop. We want an update on the hour every hour. We want to be every 2 hours. I think that communication goes a long way. So again, if you're running a piece of equipment and you're running through the mountains of Wyoming or Idaho where you lose service, right? It happens a lot. But if you were open and honest and you're communicating, saying, "Hey, I'm going through this patch here. I'll be out in 2 hours. If you haven't heard from me in 2 hours, try giving me a buzz." Those things go a long way too. And we can relay that to our customer, and our customer's sympathetic at that point as well. So again, that communication of just being, once again, open, honest, transparent, and just living and dying by that communication, huge for us. And again, of course, is service, right? Making sure that we're getting the best of the best. If I ask and say, "Hey, my customer wants a driver in there. He doesn't want no, they don't want flip flops. They don't want shorts. They don't want a t-shirt. They want to make sure the guy has long sleeves. He has, eyewear protection or a hard hat or something along those lines." Making sure we're communicating that and vice versa, and coming back and saying, "Yep, I can make that happen," without an issue. Um, that's big for us. And we do a lot of that by talking to the drivers as well. Again, I referenced it earlier. Sometimes dispatchers, they just don't know, right? They don't know certain things. They don't know what their driver may or may not have. They don't realize that the driver may have had his truck broken into and had all of those things stolen the night before. So again, we try talking to the driver and saying, "Hey, do you have all of these things? If so, proceed. If not, hey, here's an option. Can we go pick it up at this store?" Or option B is unfortunately we can't give you the order, but we'll get you on the next one. And as long as you're open and honest with that, that's so much better. Because again, driver shows up and he doesn't have that hard hat, and he gets thrown out. Number one, that driver just missed out on probably 5 other orders or 5 other loads that brokers were offering elsewhere, just because they thought they'd be able to do that. Or it happens so often in our
Yeah.
industry. And I'm not sure if it's a dispatcher driver thing. I don't know if it's a broker dispatcher driver thing. But again, it's just that communication, that open, transparent, honest. Hey, this is what I have. This is what I don't have. This is what I can do. This is what I can't do. Um, it goes so far in what we do, and those carriers are highlighted within our system, and we know that. Like I said earlier, carrier A costs more, carrier B costs less, but has problems. We're going to go with carrier A 9.9999 times out of 10.
Man, I love it. I mean, I think you emphasize some very, very, very important points. One, you got to have those aligned goals, and just the ethics behind at the end of the day mean a lot. That communication, transparency, those are the biggest things I definitely have within the dispatch space. Is just a respect and understanding what transparency needs to be and how it helps everybody. Sometimes people just need to be directed or redirected, because their mind might make a shortcut saying, okay, 30 miles does equal 30 minutes, but they just mistakenly said that. And I think it's having these type of conversations that give people the understanding that no, you really just need to be as specific as possible, not do shortcuts, to just say something in a different way, but be as specific as possible. But yeah, no, I love what you said. I pray that the individuals who hear this can take heed to those things. And, you mentioned dispatch companies, and I wanted to bring up dispatch companies in regards to peak season, because you might get a opportunity for some high intensity opportunity in an area that maybe you haven't developed your carrier base in too much. And I wanted to know, when something like that does happen, I know that you've interacted with dispatchers in the past, but independent dispatch agencies, like, that's what they do. Dispatch for
Mhm.
multiple MCs. Would that be something that, do you not would do you believe there's like a benefit of building relationships with an independent dispatch agency, when it comes to servicing some of those peak season opportunities? What are your candid thoughts on that?
I think you can argue either side of the fence. I think a brokerage will look at an independent agency and say, "Well, um, I don't need I don't need that. What I need is I need the driver. I need to be able to talk to them, et cetera, et cetera. They're taking out of my profit. Um, those types of things. They could easily argue that. But then there's also the ones that, again, carriers that don't have a lot of access to a lot of the resources that an independent agency might have. So again, you might not know that that carrier is out there. So from a brokerage side of things, you can go either way. I think in both scenarios as well. From a carrier perspective, I think it makes the roads a little bit safer. Um, you know, so many times we hear from drivers that are on the road and they're calling about our load, and it's like, how did you hear about this order? And it's like, I was on my phone. Are you driving? Yes. And that's not good either, So, but I understand because there's not as many opportunities in our space that those folks are glued to that. So they may as an owner operator may need to be like attached to their phone, which isn't safe for our roads. But then there's also the side of the fence too, is that their costs are so thin that they can't afford to hire a dispatcher full time. So a dispatching agency becomes necessary for them. So again, you know, there's so many different things so many different ways you can argue this thing with independent agencies. For me personally, candidly, I don't know enough good ones, right? So you get the fly by nights that don't really succeed at what they're doing, and they create more problems than they do assurances, so to speak. But then there's the good ones too that definitely have a purpose in our space and are doing great things for owner operators and helping shippers and brokerages like us meet our goals, as well. So um, I'm sorry if I'm not picking one side or the other because I think that there's advantages and disadvantages to on both sides of the fence with an independent agency.
Oh no, it's all right, man. To be honest, we're just here talking about it, bringing
Hmm.
light to what is definitely a necessity in the industry. And again, I mean, I understand both sides of the fence. I'm not, I'm not blind to the fact that there are some fly by night operations that might be tainting the name and credibility. And it's, so it's all good. It's no worries. I just wanted to hear it from somebody, a practitioner, somebody that's been in the league, who's been, growing, and, you're building, I mean, well, you're not building, you already built a nice sized brokerage that is in a spot that can leverage both motor carriers as well as independent dispatch agencies. So, no, it's all good. I just want the conversation to continue because, as I've stated in the past, not necessarily in this conversation, after the FMCSA makes their ruling, we're just gonna see where it goes, and I think things are just gonna fall where they fall.
Yeah.
But once that decision is made, and if it does you know, it does rule that independent dispatch agencies can continue to operate in the way that they have, maybe some more regulation, maybe some, whatever it is, that they be accepted once that ruling is made. So yeah, it's just all about the conversation, and
It's
yeah,
interesting. It's interesting though, because if you look back to the early 2000s, brokerages were that was like the dirty word, right? You there were not very good brokerages out there. It was very shady practice, and over time it became acceptable. And again, I think that there are certain things and certain strategies that an independent agency can take to really help drivers, achieve their business goals. Um, but again, it's going to take uh, companies like yourself and people like yourself to really drive that change. And I think that that's going to be uh, whatever way that ruling ends up. I think that again, if it ends up in where they allow independent agencies are, I think it's companies that are really going to have to come out into the forefront and really drive that change. And if they're going to be successful, they can't be just that fly by night. They can't give bad reputations. They really have to know their drivers and the equipment that they're operating, so that they don't make mistakes. Because again, those are things that brokers did early in late in the 90s and early 2000s that really gave it a bad name. And I remember, you know, my dad asking me when I transitioned from his company to a brokerage. He's like, "Why would you want to go work for a brokerage? That's the worst thing you could possibly do. There's just such a terrible name in the industry." And I was just like, "Well, we're able to do some things. We're going to be ethical. We're going to change things. We're going to make ourselves have a great name and make it more acceptable." And then all of a sudden, you started seeing more and more pop up and be created, and a lot of there's a lot of good to a brokerage now. More good than bad, in my opinion. So
definitely, definitely. I hear you there, man. And I love that. I love that seasoning, man. I love the fact that you were able to add some context from recent history about how things just change, just with time and with regulation, because that's the main part. It was the regulation that probably also allowed folks to get behind the accepting of brokerages. So yeah, I mean, I just want to say thank you for adding that. And at the end of the day, that was my last question.
mhm.
Did you have anything that you wanted to say to any advice for people who are experiencing their very first peak season, or anything that we didn't get a chance to cover that you just feel like you want to say at that point? If you do, the floor is yours, brother.
Yeah, I just think the biggest thing is put a value on your service. Don't settle and don't accept mediocrity that will put you out of business. I think that that's a big topic of conversation that goes on around our space, not just Expedite, but any transportation company out there, where people just drive down rates and hurt the industry. So again, know what your value is, know what you're worth, um, know what you can weather and what you can't. And at the end of the day, I think it goes a long way, and stay true to your values. I think for us, one of the things at Candor that we always say is we're going to stay true to those things. And it's interesting. I come from the Chicago market, and that the, the big box brokerages, and there's so many of these folks here, and so many carriers that have popped up in recent years. And again, it was always like, you sat in some of these classrooms that they were teaching folks to learn how to become a broker, and it's like sometimes you got to lie, or sometimes you got to stretch the truth a little bit. And even on the carrier side too, is like, hey, if a broker calls you, we're not really interested in that business, and you don't have to necessarily tell them the truth. And again, I think that the worst thing you can teach, the worst thing you can say. I don't think that it happens as often as it used to. But again, I think being true to yourself, putting a value on your business, putting a value on you as an employee is critical, and having a set of values is super important. Those opportunities are going to come, when those types of things happen, and when you stay true to that, it's when you go outside of that, not fully prepared, that you're going to get chewed up and spit out.
True enough. I love that. Thank you so much. I think that resonated with a couple folks too, that were in the room. Brother Felton said, "Thank you for the confirmation." But yeah, no, those are definitely wise words. I appreciate you for your time this evening. I appreciate you for working so vigorously through that troubleshooting situation earlier. Man, that is so wild.
Yeah, my kids are probably on
What it was.
YouTube. My kids are on YouTube like 2 hours earlier. They're having so much fun at home right now. They're not even missing me right now. They've never had their iPads on before, 7 o'clock.
Oh
So
man.
on a school night, so they're probably enjoying it too. So yeah, it's one of those things, and you learn. And I found something out new about an iPhone that I never even knew was possible. So crazy how that
Man.
works.
No, I love it. I love it. So thank you so much for your time, brother. For the continued support of the transportation and logistics community. I am so grateful. We are almost at 30,000 folks in here, man. Like, this thing, it grew from it just being myself in this room by myself, and then my wife joined me. She was my girlfriend at the time, and now,
Hmm.
we have curated a community of almost 30,000 transportation and logistics professionals. And it's just beautiful. I'm just very grateful for all the support. And I'll say tune in on Wednesday at 7 p.m. We're going to be discussing niches within the brokerage space. Are there riches in the niches? And I know the people who I'm going to be interviewing on Wednesday, I know that they move a lot of high value aeronautical equipment. So very, very pricey stuff that they've definitely carved out their own niche. And next week, join us on Monday as we partner with Freightwave Sonar Team. Just like every other Monday, 7:30 a.m. You'll be able to find out where to position your trucks to take advantage of the market. And if you're a broker, you'll be able to see where the market is super soft so that you can take advantage of the market as well. Um, so, Jacob, if you need anything in the meantime, brother, just holler at me. But I truly appreciate you for your time this evening.
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me. It was a blast. I enjoyed it. Looking forward to catching up with you soon, um, and continued success as you continue down your journey of keeping the transportation industry informed.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. God bless you and your family. And everybody, y'all have a blessed week. Thank you.
Thank you.